The once beautiful city of Aleppo is in rubble. But why? We know we can't trust what the media tells us. Hey guys, Len here doing a video on the atrocities that are going down in Aleppo, the BS that the media is trying to feed us, and we are going to shine a light on that shit. But to do that, we have got to take a condensed view of our last 25 years of foreign policy, and then it's going to seem very, very clear. It's going to be a little bit longer video than normal, but trust me, you are going to find this extremely interesting. Quick disclaimer, I already realize that my webcam and my microphone are less than perfect. Doing the best I can with what I have, so let's get to it. Let's rewind back to 1990 Iraq before Bush 1 attacked them. Women had more rights than they did anywhere throughout the Middle East. Muslims and Christians living side by side peacefully. School was free all the way through college. Food was abundant and low cost. Malnutrition non-existent. Water and electricity all through the country. 18 new hospitals. Healthcare was virtually free. Life was good. Now, was Saddam Hussein a ruthless dictator? Absolutely. Show me a Middle Eastern leader that's not a ruthless dictator. I'll show you one that didn't last. But he did not want war. He just finished an 8-year war with Iran. His military was denigrated. He did not want to pick a fight with the U.S., period. Saddam had a problem with Kuwaitis for a long time. Tried repeatedly to negotiate with them. They would not negotiate. We find out years later the Bush administration was urging the Kuwaitis not to negotiate. So he approached the U.S. ambassador to Iraq, which is April Gillespie. Well, we find out years later on 7/25/1990 that April Gillespie sent Saddam a cable letting him know that the U.S. had no position on Arab-to-Arab conflict, so basically she green-lighted him. So with Bush's blessing, Saddam invades Kuwait. So no sooner did the Iraqi forces cross into Kuwait that George Bush was all over the media condemning the invasion, thinking that was going to be enough to sway the American public into going to war with Iraq. But the disastrous Vietnam War ended only 15 years prior, so the American people did not want war with Iraq. So I guess that's the end of it. The American people don't want war with Iraq. All done, right? No, sir. Public sentiment shifted quickly when a young lady by the name of Na'i Ra gave a tearful eyewitness account, too afraid to give her last name, about Iraqi soldiers in a Kuwaiti hospital taking babies out of incubators, putting them on the cold floor to die. And George Bush, meanwhile, was making his rounds in the media informing the American public that 312 babies had died in this manner. But things aren't always what they seem. The Bush administration hired the PR firm of Hill and Knowlton to sell the war, and she wasn't actually afraid to give her last name. Her actual name was Najera al-Sabah, the daughter of the Kuwaiti ambassador to the United States. Now, according to the Center for Media and Democracy, not only did the PR firm Hill and Knowlton coach Najera on her narrative, but they literally packaged and circulated media kits of her eyewitness account to help sell the war to the world. And unfortunately, and God forgive us, it worked. According to retired Israeli Major General Madi Peled, the U.S. massively overinflated the potential of the Iraqi military. And you have to agree with him. What are the chances the Iraqis would be at maximum strength after an 8-year-long war with Iran? January 16, 1991, the Allied forces unleashed hell, otherwise known as shock and awe. And this went on for 42 days and 42 nights. 88,000 tons of explosives dropped, 100,000 dead, infrastructure decimated, and over 1 million without food and water. Bush's plan to decimate Iraq and invoke civil unrest and terrorism worked perfectly, but he did not count on Saddam Hussein regaining control of his country, so his ultimate goal to overthrow Saddam failed. So who really wanted to remove Saddam? They weren't our enemy. Well, Saudi Arabia's King Fahd funded religious fundamentalist and terrorist group Mujahideen, defied Muslim opposition for letting Allied forces use their airstrip, funded $50 billion of the Allied war effort, and God knows they have close ties with the Bush family. Now, you guys are getting the gist of this, so let's go ahead and do a recap of the next 14 years on steroids. So fast forward to the year 2001, George W. Bush is president. Would he want to finish the job in Iraq for his daddy and his Saudi buddies? It didn't matter what he wanted. He had no discernible reason to give to the American public for war. And then lo and behold, all of a sudden there is a reason. Mainstream media and the Bush administration wasted no time trying to blame Iraq for 9/11. But we weren't buying it because we knew he was just finishing his father's legacy. Since that didn't do it, our intelligence community then verifies that Iraq has WMDs. And then we still didn't believe Bush, so he got Colin Powell to go to the United Nations to give verification that Iraq did have WMDs, and then hired PR firms to sell it to the American people. And then the Bushes finally got their war at the cost of 500,000 lives and $6 trillion in taxpayer money. Interesting to know, though, on 9/11, with air traffic completely restricted, 140 Saudi nationals were permitted to fly out without any questioning at all. And surprise, surprise, no WMDs. 2009, Obama becomes president, Hillary becomes Secretary of State, Muammar Gaddafi, no longer misbehaving, started fighting terrorism in Libya and providing the U.S. with intel on terrorist activity. Instead of helping him, they armed the jihadists, we find out from WikiLeaks, to overthrow him. U.S. Ambassador Chris Stevens realized that these jihadists were armed all of a sudden and started requesting increased security.
That's over 600 requests. You've testified here this morning that you had none of those reach your desk. Is that correct?
That's correct.
600 requests? That's one request every 2 working hours for 6 months. And just as Ambassador Stevens feared, the consulate was attacked.
Sources telling us CIA officers on the ground in Benghazi during the attack sent requests for help but were denied.
So Hillary denied requests for increased security on the embassy, armed the jihadists that attacked the embassy, and denied help while the embassy was being attacked. Immediately after the attack, Hillary and the administration started blaming a controversial YouTube video insulting the Prophet Muhammad for the attack, which we later found out to be a lie. But the question is, was this a random terror attack, or did Chris Stevens know they armed those jihadists and it was an assassination? And as we speak, those same jihadists have majority control of Libya in a state of chaos, and they're getting rich off of Libyan oil. And further proof that Hillary had armed the jihadists, aka rebels, is the gun-running case the Justice Department had against Mark Turi.
The Justice Department has now moved to dismiss the charges against Turi, in part because a trial that would happen around the election in November would publicly expose evidence about the administration's strategy to arm the Libyan opposition.
Okay, guys, that's the end of part 1 and off to part 2 on our current conflict in Syria. If you liked this and found this informative, you're going to absolutely love part 2. But please take a second to like and subscribe. I'd very much appreciate it. Thanks a bunch. Peace.